Hello everyone, I'm Amrita from Spinner Story and continuing my series on the life stories of children's book authors. Today I bring you Julia Donaldson, whose birthday it also happens to be today. What can I tell you about her? She's known as the queen of children's picture books. She's the queen of rhyme. She's written over 200 books which have been translated in several languages. And it's not just children's picture books. She has done poetry books. She has done song books. There are novels and countless plays. So if there's one person you feel that you'd like to know who's really connected to their inner child, where she would be the best example of that. So if you've got kids at home or if you're around children, you have definitely heard of her, and if not, then maybe you have heard or seen of this character that she created called the Gruffalo, who is as famous as her, if not more famous. And every night millions of children around the world go to sleep listening to a Julia Donaldson story, or maybe they even try to read it by themselves. So let's hear her story. Julia was born Julia Catherine Shields on 16 September 1948 in Hampstead in North London, and she lived in a biggish family, kind of like an Indian joint family, isn't it? With an aunt, uncle, a grandma, and her parents. Here she is. Her parents, Jerry, her father Jerry was a lecturer. He loved to play the cello, and her mother was working as a secretary, but she was also a translator, and both parents spoke very fluent German. And who else do we have? We had her sister Mary, her younger sister, who actually, here they are, both of them, they're dressed up as Bucket and Spade for a school fancy dress, and they even had a cat called Geoffrey. Now Geoffrey, they used to think, both of them, was a prince in disguise, and they both used to talk about who would marry him when they grew up. So the house, the Shields house, was full of music and song. It was a great environment for a kid to be growing up in. Now, when Julia was 5 years old, her dad gifted her this book called The Book of 1,000 Poems. You can even see he signed it for her. Now, this book was something which was pretty much a favorite with her. She read all the poems. She would even enact the poems. She would write her own poems too. And she declared when she was 5 that when she grows up, she wanted to be a writer. Prophecy, isn't it? So another person I wanted to share who was very crucial for her growing up years was her grandmother. So her grandmother gave her a book of poems by Edward Lear in rhyme, and that really egged on Julia. She even performed poetry in school. In fact, in later years, she was an understudy for a Midsummer's Night Dream. And her first story that she wrote as a kid was about a bunny who had long ears like a carrot. So there was another very interesting thing I found out I wanted to share, that her grandmother used to encourage both Mary and her to, use old paper bags, brown paper bags, in which she would encourage them to draw and write. So this was something very sweet I wanted to share with you. Now, when Julia grew up, she went to college at the University of Bristol, where she studied French and drama. Her parents spoke German, so she also picked up German and a bit of Italian as well. Now, she was in college when she met this young man called Malcolm, who was turning to be a doctor, and he played the guitar. And Julia and him went about busking. Now, you'll ask me what busking is. Well, busking is when, you sing or you perform in an open area, a public area, or maybe even in a cafe, and you put this big hat, right at front, where people can actually donate or give you money if they really like your performance. So the two of them loved busking, they loved singing, they went all over Europe, and she wrote a special song for every country that they went to. In fact, the song for Italy was, I believe, called the Spaghetti Song. In 1972, Julia and Malcolm got married. What an unusual way to go from church to their reception, isn't it? So after marriage, Julia was doing a whole lot of things. She worked for a publisher, she worked for a radio show, she studied a bit, she taught in a school, she took part in plays, and with Malcolm, the two of them would go performing in folk clubs, which was something that they really liked to do. In 1974, she sent out a tape of all her songs to the BBC because she thought she'd like to be a presenter. The BBC instead asked her to start writing songs for their TV series, their children's TV programs that they do. So in her own words, she's written that she has done everything, songs about guinea pigs and window cleaning and horrible smells. Now, she started wanting to start her family. So in 1978, she had her first son, Hamish, and then there were two other boys, Alistair and Jerry. And while she was really busy rearing them up, she was also actively volunteering at their school. In fact, she wrote a whole lot of plays for all the kids to be participating in. Now, something, when we say there is a life-changing moment, well, for Julia, it was when she went from being a songwriter to someone who started writing stories. And that happened in 1991. So there was a publisher who approached her saying that they really liked one of her songs from way back in the 70s, and they asked her, would you like to write a story and make a children's book out of it? And of course, Julia was thrilled. So in 1993, when Julia was 44, so all of you thinking of wanting to be authors and you're not getting on with the years, well, here's an inspiration for you. At the age of 44 came her book called A Squash and a Squeeze, based on a song that she had done many years ago. And what was it all about? So there was an old lady whose house is full and cramped and squashed with all these animals. So that was what the story was all about. Now, the illustrator for this book was a German who lived in London called Axel Scheffler. And this book pretty much started a lifelong collaboration between the two of them. They worked on several books after that. In fact, I believe they worked on over 20 books together. They have also been lifelong friends. Okay, so here's a picture of Axel and Julia on a book tour. They've done that together. Here's another picture of them, sitting inside a model of the old lady's house from Squash and Squeeze. And whenever he writes her letters, he always, puts these really cute characters on these envelopes. I wanted to show that. That was really cute. So there's one very interesting thing I wanted to point out. A lot of us think that, when a writer and an illustrator are doing a book, they actually sit down together and do it. No, that's not how it works. The writer writes the story, it goes to the publisher who sends it to the illustrator they deem fit, and then the illustrator conjures up all the magic that goes into the story. So this is a very important part of publishing which a lot of us didn't know, and I wanted to highlight that for you. So in the intermediate years after the book came out, so from 93 to about 96, what did Julia do? So she was approached by an educational publisher, and they asked her to publish plays which could be performed by adults, for kids, small groups, big groups, and she wrote a whole lot of plays. And in fact, she also dug out her drawer, dug into her drawer of all the plays she wrote for her sons when they were in school. So all these plays started getting published, and she started actually researching traditional folk tales for the same educational publisher. And in 1995, she came across this Chinese traditional folktale about a girl who's in a forest and who escapes being eaten by a tiger by pretending to be the queen of the jungle. Now, she really loved this story, and she said, I want to write a story about a tiger as well. And she wanted to do this story in rhyme. So she couldn't find really anything that rhymed with tiger. So she said, okay, let the tiger be, let me create my own character. So when she started creating her own character, there were a lot of things coming in her mind, and she thought of, she wanted something which rhymed with oh no or did you know. So she said, okay, the character ends with an O, that's for sure. Now, since she was doing this character, which was going to be like a bit of a monster, she said, let me have the beginning as a fierce grrr. Okay, so the beginning was a grrr, and then there was O, and then she said, my monster may be really big, like a buffalo. So that's how she came up with this idea of a monster called the Gruffalo. Okay, and then she sent this story, which she wrote quickly. She said she had an idea for a year, but she wrote it quickly and she sent it to a publisher. And they said, no, we don't want to publish it because they didn't write, rhyme stories were not really done in the 90s, because a lot of these books were getting translated in other languages, and it would have been very difficult to find, translators for a rhyming book. So she did something very unusual. She sent the book to her friend Axel, who then found a publisher for her. And in 1999, this book finally came out. So I wanted to show you, this is Julia's page where she's written all this stuff and doodling. her diary when she wrote the Gruffalo, and this was Axel's initial sketch of the Gruffalo. So this is like a woodland creature who's a little scary, who's a little comical, and this very cute little sketch is where she's thinking up the character, and of course there's a little mouse here. Now what is the mouse doing here? Who is he? So the mouse was actually in lieu of the girl from the Chinese fable. So, this story is basically about this little mouse who actually outwits the Gruffalo and a whole lot of other animals and escapes being eaten. And when this book came out, the message it basically gave everybody is that no matter how big or small, if you use your brain, you can pretty much get yourself out of any situation. So the Gruffalo came out in 1999. It was a super duper hit. It was a bestseller. It won the Smarties Prize. It won many other prizes. It's been translated in over 100 languages, and it has sold billions of copies. So here is a page from the book. Remember, I told you it's in rhyme. And of course, after the book came a whole lot of books. There were the sound books, song books, activity books, CDs, and a whole lot of paraphernalia. In fact, the Gruffalo even has its own website called gruffalo.com. Now, it doesn't stop here. To show you what a phenomenon the Gruffalo became, there was stage plays that Julia used to do. So here she is dressed up as a mouse, and sometimes Malcolm played Gruffalo. So there were stage shows. It was even made into an animation movie, which was nominated for the Oscars and the BAFTA. Then it went to Broadway musicals. And you won't believe it, there was even an opera based on the Gruffalo. Amazing. And of course, after the Gruffalo, the floodgates were open. She did books after books after books. In fact, so many illustrators' careers have been made because they got a chance to work with the Julia Donaldson. So of course, I'll just name a few books quickly. Monkey Puzzle is a favorite of mine. It came out in 2000. And then of course, Room on the Broom, which a lot of people say is actually maybe as famous as the Gruffalo itself. So we already had the Gruffalo. There was Gruffalo's Child. We already had Squash and Squeeze. Then came Snail in the Whale. The list is endless. Okay, and then with the books, because kids are involved, then came the merchandise. So there's everything under the sun, from school bags to purses, aprons, stationery, cups, to a lot of these CDs, which CDs were in the 90s, right? So song books and special play areas designed for the books and toys. There's been everything under the sun. And of course, Julia hasn't stopped at just that, right? Remember I mentioned she's written songs. So she's done a lot of song books. There are 3 albums actually of Gruffalo, Gruffalo's Child, and so on. And then each one of her books, in fact not each but most of her books, have brilliant activity books. So if you buy a book, do check out and buy a activity book as well. And she has done plays. She's done books and books on plays. So if you want to know how to convert a book into a play, do check out picturebookplays.co.uk. That's the best place to go if you want to check that out. And of course, she hasn't written books just for small kids. There is a Princess Belle, Mirabelle series, which is for older kids who are starting to read on their own, as are these books. And of course, this one was even converted into a TV series. And then she's written novels for teenagers as well. And in 2011, now she was nominated a Children's Laureate in the UK. So what is a Children's Laureate? Is an illustrator or an author who's appointed for a tenure of 2 years to really promote and encourage children's interest in reading and literature. So while she was a Children's Laureate, she really worked very hard. So she really encouraged children to read aloud and enact the books that they were reading and take part in plays and convert their books into plays. So there was this whole idea where she felt that, that would really build their confidence if they did that. Then she really revived a lot of libraries which was state funded in the UK. So she made sure that the politicians and the government were putting in money to the libraries. She would do a lot of events in libraries while she was Children's Laureate. Here is a really cute picture of her. So a typical Julia Donaldson event will have her reading a few books. She will read aloud. Then she'll start calling everybody onto the stage. Pretty soon there'll be adults on the stage, there'll be kids on the stage, they'll be acting out the book, they will be singing songs. Remember, she's written songs. And here this one even has her husband Malcolm performing in. And the third thing she wanted to do, which she felt was the biggest thing of all, was really to encourage children to read for pleasure, to read for enjoyment, to read for fun. So that's something she has really tried to propagate. Now she's won a whole lot of awards. Okay, so I'll just show you a few of the things she's won. So she was a member of the Order of the British Empire in 2011, which is very, very prestigious. It's like the Padma Shri we have in our country. And she went with Malcolm, dressed in full Scottish regalia, to receive it. In 2019, she got the Commander of the Order of the British Empire, which is called the CBE. And here she went with her two sons, Alistair and Jerry. Hamish unfortunately passed away at the age of 25. Now she's got two honorary doctorates. One is from the University of Bristol, which is her alma mater, and also from the University of Glasgow. So I'm not showing you all the literary awards because they are an endless list. I need another session for that. And in the UK, you have well and truly arrived if you have your portrait commissioned and hung on the National Portrait Gallery in London. So she has a portrait there as well. So just to give you a bit of number crunching, okay, every 11 seconds a Julia Donaldson book is sold in the UK, and from the year 2010 to 2019 she was the author of the decade in the UK. She sold 27 million books. It's a mind-boggling number. I wanted to share that with you. Now, with all this fame has come a lot of things, but Julia has also done a lot of work for charities. So I wanted to share some very, very pertinent, which I felt was very important to be shared. So a lot of us don't know that Julia has something which is called a cookie bite hearing loss, where she can't hear the whole thing, she hears only partially, and she understands you and me by lip reading. Okay, so she has worked a lot with charities. One is called Action for Deafness. There's even one for children called For the Now, the Chestnut Tree House, where she's worked with deafness and really trying to address it. Now, two things I really liked was there's this charity in Scotland called Bookbug, and she's associated with this. You know what they do? Every year, they gift 5 lakh books to kids under the age of 5 in Scotland to encourage them to read. And this other one called Storybook Dads, I really love that. This is when prisoners can record their voices while they are reading out a storybook for their kids, and then these are sent to the kids who can really hear their dads reading out a story for them at night. And I really love that, and I wanted to highlight that as well. So if you ask Julia, you are so prolific. How do you do this? How have you done all these books? So she says she gets her inspiration from pretty much everywhere. The ideas come easily. It's just the middle, the beginning and the end which she finds difficult to put together. So I saw this picture I wanted to show you. It's really cute. I don't know if it's for real that she is in her bath, but knowing Julia, it probably is. So she gets her ideas from pretty much everywhere. And another very sweet thing is her website. You must check it out. It's called juliadonaldson.co.uk. It's pretty much like a child's pin-up board, that all of us have had. It's so nice. It's very endearing because when you go to the website, it actually looks like she is talking to you. It's a beautiful website. Do check it out. So what does Julia do now? So she lives in a very little village. So this is the UK. I always like to show geographies when I'm doing story. So she lives near Brighton, okay, near the sea. That's where she lives, in this little village in Sussex, and the village has become famous all thanks to her. And of course, I'll quickly show you the other places. So London is where she was born, Bristol is where she studied and also lived, and of course Glasgow, where in Scotland, where she also lived for a while. So her village, she's a celebrity there. The local bookshop has done tremendously well, all thanks to her. Here's a picture of her sitting at her garden with all her different props. Here is another picture of her. She has a special prop room. She has hundreds of props and puppets. So here's a prop room in the house. She even has a very nice den in her house. And here are pictures of her at her writing desk and her study. Now, her typical style of writing, a lot of people are curious about it, so I did a bit of research and find out that she typically, again, ideas come very easily, but she typically takes just a couple of weeks to write a storybook, a picture book when she is sitting at it. And she always likes to write with pen and pencil on a diary when she's doing a picture book. So here she is with a kookaburra pencil. And when it comes to writing novels, she feels that it's a longer process. It can take 6 months or longer. So she likes to sit in front of a computer and do the typing. Now, another very cute thing is she says the writing easy part is okay. In the beginning, I write it out, but she is a relentless reviser. She will go on polishing it and go on tweaking it till she gets it exactly right. And also, with rhyme, her background of having written songs, having written plays really, really helps her a lot. So this is something I wanted to share about her writing. Now, a very cute story is, if you see this picture of hers where she sits by her desk, now there's a window, and the kids in the neighborhood, they walk past because it's right at the street, and they wave at her and she waves back. So she's kind of such a hands-on person, and she's always engaged with children. Now, in 2020, when the lockdown happened, everybody's life came to a standstill. So Julia was also cooped up with her husband, and they thought of, what should we do now? So they said, let's do something for all the children who are cooped up in their homes. Let's create something for them. So she came up with this idea of Julia Donaldson and Friends, which was going to be a weekly broadcast. She and Malcolm, they would make videos. Now, if you see these videos, do check them out online. They are very amateurish, but so cute. They are so endearing. So she would record her reading a book or singing a song. So here they are with the props performing a song, and here they are singing in the prop room another song. And they even shot the Gruffalo movie in the deep dark wood, in her words, the forest near her house, where she was the mouse and Malcolm played all the other characters. Here's another cute picture of them. Now, what they did was they also invited a lot of her illustrator friends to be part of this weekly program. And of course, it was all online. And the illustrators drew out the characters from all the books which children could copy and then learn how to make characters. So this was really lovely. She did this for all the kids all over the world, cooped up at home. Now, what I feel, my takeaway from when I study and read about her life is that what it really reinforces in me is follow your passion. This goes for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a kid or an adult. Remember, she wrote her first book at the age of 44. So follow your passion, and every little thing you do in life, big or small, actually contributes into making you who you are. So this is something I really wanted to share with all of you. Now, if you have an author that you would like me to talk about, well, then just give me a shout out. Did I just rhyme? Anyway, so this particular story is part of a series, like I told you, and there's in fact a series on Indian festivals as well. It's available on Spinner Story on YouTube and on Facebook, and as on Instagram as well, of course. So do check it out. Give me a shout out, write me some comments, let me know what you'd like me to share with you next. So I bid you adieu, and till next time, bye bye.